Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, triggered by the undervaluing of this Red Raider.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's episode, I want to get into a couple of personnel matters. I want to talk undervaluing a Red Raider here or there. We'll give some options on both sides of the football. Some kind of hard to believe, but could it be true? I'll explain in just a moment. We'll get to some alternates as well, some other names maybe on the list of those undervalued or overlooked, maybe depending upon how you want to describe some of those as we head into 2025. But I got to be honest with you, I don't blame anyone if you're sort of losing track of a name here or there because of the fast and furious nature with which some of these names were being added. So a lot of us probably circling back to refreshing our memory on who is who and who's lining up where and who's expected to do what. But we'll get to some of these guys in just a moment, Chris. But whenever you talk about the additions that were made, a lot of them expected to do a lot and be impact players very early on. So I'm really interested in an undervalued pick for you because a lot of these guys seem to come with a really high value and a big spotlight on them. Hard to imagine they could be overlooked, but I guess it could be so.
Yeah, this is a fun topic this particular year because you do have a lot of guys valued, and so, but because you have some guys valued, there are plenty of opportunities for people to be glossed over. Like I have tried to. I think like a Terrence Carter is a good example of this on the offensive side. I think he's kind of been under the radar a bit. I think. Cole Wisniewski on the defensive side. As far as like some of your top end of your top 30 players or whatever, but I'm gonna go a couple different routes, and we have you and I have talked about this. We have some reasons why we're gonna point these guys out on both sides of the ball. But this is always a fun topic to me because we even got the question recently about like returners that are maybe being overlooked because you have so many quality new pieces. I mean, your Dingles, your Currys, your Akins, your whatever. Sheridan Wilson. There's a bunch of J Rod's certainly been getting his shine and he certainly deserves it. But like defensively, because I'm going to save some time for the offensive side of this deal because that may take some time for us to get into. But defensively. And you'll have to help me out here, but it was over the weekend. There was some Twitter activity, and there was a list. There's a million lists. We are list season is nearly exhausted. We're not quite there, but somebody put out something, and it was like top 15, I think top 15 or top 20 defensive players in the Big 12. And what's ironic about this is I want to say that. Texas Tech, shockingly, had like 5 or 6 representatives on this list. I think David Bailey was on this list. I think Bryce Pollock was on this list. Lee Hunter was on this list. Jacob Rodriguez was like nearly the top of the list. Have I missed anybody?
You're doing well. Jacob Rodriguez was number 2. Bailey was number 3 in the Big 12 conference. We also had Lee Hunter clocking in at 15, Cole Wisniewski at 21, Skylar Gill Howard at 22, and Bryce Pollock at 24. There was 25 spots. Okay. And as you will notice, and this is the point that Chris is hinting at, Romello Height, a name not on the list.
Yes. So in a list where you're close to having 25% representation. Of course, this day and age, we're going to have some issue with being poked at. Well, it's different when you and I do it, but it's also different when somebody like Zarnell Fitch does it. It's different when Joey basically says, I brought this young man to Big 12 Media Days with me because he's not getting the shine that he deserves. And you and I have touched on this, but in any other year, we are probably heavily focused on Romello Height as a key contributor, because what has been one of your issues? You can't put pressure on the opposing quarterback. You don't knock them off their spot. You don't knock the ball loose. You don't catch it when they throw it to you. You don't force them into throws they don't want to make. It's just been way too easy for the opposition. What was it? 5 or 6 times last year, an opposing quarterback won their quarterback of the week award in whatever league they played in. Not good. And so, but it's because enter David Bailey into the chat. And so Romello Height kind of gets glossed over, and because Lee Hunter is very outgoing, and because all these other things. So I think it was interesting that Zarnell Fitch was pointed out, Romello Height is going to be a problem. If you go back to that episode we did on most explosive athletes around July 4th that we did, this is a dude that's about 240 running over 21 miles an hour on the GPS, registering and all that. There's also a dude that had 7 or 8 fewer QB pressures than David Bailey last year. Okay. I think he had 32. I think PFF, the folks there, analytically, they love what he brings to the table. Now, I think that because I mean, Jacob Rodriguez had 22 QB pressures last year. He led your team. Romello Height had 32. David Bailey had 39. Tyree Wilson, I had a conversation with Ben Golan from Red Raider Sports the other day about this, but Tyree Wilson had 50 the year that he was drafted. Point being, you have upgraded this tremendously. But Jacob Rodriguez and David Bailey, they're getting hey, man, we see you, man. And where's Romello Height's shine? And maybe it's like the Harold Crabtree thing, man. Y'all are kind of cannibalizing yourself as far as shine goes. Maybe none of us should care. I'm just saying our point is Romello Height is a dude. Any other year, he would be a dude. And this year, he will be a dude. It's just that you're not maybe talking about him because you've got a lot of other dudes. This is a good problem. But with Romello Height, we see you, sir. We want your QB pressures. We want you to wreck shop. All of it. I'm here for all of it. I want to call your name out every single week. And I know the guy next to me on screen right now wants to say the same thing to you at home games as well. So anyway, so Romello Height, yeah, salute, sir.
And I may have the timeline mixed up a little bit, but I feel like he was one of the early names or earlier names that kind of hit the list. So, tell me if I'm way off, but I think he was one of the first kind of few maybe that were signing up. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But yeah, the 25 spot, and I don't know who's making this list and who cares, honestly. But Zarnell Fitch, the quote, like Chris said, was Romello Height is a huge problem. Triple exclamation point. Fuel to the fire, double exclamation point. So we hope that is actually going to be the case. And you already gave one, but I'll give another. RedRaidersports.com shout out to our guy Joe Lopez, who I think had this quote from Height talking about his aspirations for 2025. And Height mentioned he knows the record for sacks at Texas Tech is 13. He wants 12 to 15. He's expecting to be in an impactful neighborhood, man, and that'd be just fine with me.
If you have 2 guys with double-digit sacks, yeah, I mean it's just a worlds of difference compared to what this thing has looked like in years past. Because there's been the Brandon Williams, the Brandon Sharp, Daniel Howards, Tyree Wilson, Pete Robertson, McKenna Dixon. They've had those guys. I'm just going off of your last 10 or 15 years ish.
Yeah.
Those guys have all had nice sack seasons. But again, it's different when there's a Robin to the Batman or co-stars in this movie.
Oh yeah, the Dixon Williams bookends were a lot of fun, and then you've got the hungry hippo in the middle. Shout out to our guy Kobe Whitlocker, whoever's going to play that role this time around. But it works well.
Being starred by Lee Hunter in this family, in this,
right.
This good movie.
It works well when you can just go ahead and slot them in on the edge, have the man in the middle that's just an animal, and I don't know what you do if you're in offense, but hopefully we're seeing some of that.
That means Lee Hunter owes us a big time sack in an opposing end zone at some point this year.
Happy to have that happen.
Yeah, I would love if that were to be in Tempe or Manhattan or Salt Lake City or something like that. Yeah, go ahead and write that into the script.
Yes, and just think about how good or how much better these cornerbacks are getting every day that these defensive linemen are on the field. So you'd like for a plan to come together, and hopefully that's what we see beginning not too far from now. Chris, I want to flip to the other side of the football, and we'll get back to some of these other defensive names that maybe could be on a first runner-up or alternative kind of list. But I do feel like when you're talking about being undervalued, maybe overlooked, if you want to call it that way, for Romello Height, he fits that bill, and I think he'd be a great top selection for that kind of category. But on the offensive side of things, it's even more intriguing to me because I'm asking myself, could you actually undervalue or maybe even overlook a quarterback in this day and age? First, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Baron Morton is a guy that's a known commodity as far as the name and the background and the story to Red Raider fans, Chris. So he's certainly not overlooked or undervalued in that way. But I think when you also kind of get back to some list season factoring in here, you take a look at the way that he's being slotted in among other Big 12 quarterbacks or whatever it may look like nationally. You and I are having a conversation about, these topics prior to the show. And I thought I even heard maybe a little triggering in your voice as it relates to some of the disrespect or whatever it is for Morton. But could we possibly say that your quarterback going into 2025 may be your most undervalued offensive player? Could it be?
Yeah. Do you have that list like handy so I can reference it? Like you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
It's in the bottom of my gerbil cage. I'm sorry. I believe he was in a 7 to 9 range.
I think he was 9th. Okay. I think, and I only wanted to reference it because I want to make sure that I'm talking accurately here.
Not worried about that, Chris.
I think Sam Levitt was tops, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, I think when you win a championship, you earn that right. But the point is that, okay, so this is another list. This was more honed in on conference specific. And we're at that time of year where there's a list on everything out there, right? Where we're getting to the end, hopefully. But anyway, it's with all the talk about how good this league is at the QB position, and it is. This is going to be really the storyline of the season in this league is this position. So anyway, to speed this conversation up, look, so much I don't know, naysaying about Baron Morton out there. I feel like I think that some have said, "Oh no, man, you're overlooking him." But I mean, there's plenty. He is not the buzzy guy, and maybe it's because there's so many other guys on this deal. Maybe it's because of his injuries. Maybe it's because he missed the spring. I mean, okay, I'll listen to all of that. Maybe it's because the left side of his offensive line struggled mightily that year, and people have forgotten to remember that part. I don't know. Sawyer Robertson is like this Heisman Trophy candidate. Everybody tried to hand Avery Johnson the Heisman Trophy last year, and now he's like, okay, watch out. Like if he just gets a little more accurate, Sam Levitt is this first round draft pick. Devin Dampier at Utah, which I think Cowan was, third on this list. I don't know. You have to correct me if I'm wrong there. I think the Utah, the newcomer, I think he was like top 3 or 4. This is Andy Staples that we're referring. Andy Staples put out a deal on On3, and it was like Big 12 rankings the whole thing was, here's my list. What are your thoughts? That's the whole point of these lists. And here we are giving our thoughts.
We're falling into his trap.
Andy wins.
And I like Andy. I look at his stuff. I think he's got a lot of credibility. So
yes, very much so. And again, it's all eye of the beholder. There's what's the criteria for this list? Are you projecting? Is it based on what you've done? Is it what I think you're going to do? So who knows? To each his own. Point being, I was a bit triggered because
y'all are hearing that triggering. You're hearing a little of the trigger in there, like I did.
Yeah, it's I don't mind if Barron is like if there's doubters. I get it. I certainly there's plenty of things you can point to that go, okay. Does he have a hard time staying healthy? Okay, he did play all 12 games though last year, all 12. And then chose to have the surgery because I think he felt like he wasn't right and wanted to get it fixed and all that. Missed the spring. There was been an ankle injury the year before. There's the things. But my thing is like, okay, do enough people talk about the fact that when he starts a game and finishes it, so you can't consider the TCU game last year. Started the game, didn't finish it, didn't play the second half. But when he starts it and he finishes it, he's 14-4. That doesn't suck. 27 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Okay, so here's the points I wanted to make.
That's all.
Like the dude that is third on Dampier, I think I'm right that he's third. He was 12 interceptions and 12 touchdowns last year at New Mexico. And New Mexico went 5-7. And so all of a sudden he leaves New Mexico and led them to a stellar less than 500 record, and now we're going to crown him. We're going to crown him as one of these guys. I mean, and again, if you're projecting, that's fine. To each his own. I just have a hard time with that. Or I can take a guy. That quarterbacked his team to wins over, I believe, first. And I think Rocco Becht was like 4th or 5th on this list.
That's right. Rocco Becht was 5th.
Okay, so first and 5th. And here's also what I would say. Doesn't John Heacock and Iowa State, don't we crown them every year about the greatest defense and it's the most magnificent scheme ever? And like you can't crack the code. Well, somebody did it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but statistically, wasn't Texas Tech one of the worst defenses in the country, not just the Big 12 last year?
Yes.
Okay, Rocco, where you at, dog? What'd you do there with your little fancy ranking there? And Sam Levitt, Mr. Draft Pick, what did you do? What did you do with that? So I just feel like some of this needs to be pointed out if we're ranking stuff. So again, to each his own. I get the slander. I get the some of the reasoning. I just don't know enough people are pointing out some of the are willing to punch back on some of this stuff too. I mean, Jalen Daniels was like high on this deal too.
2 slots higher than Barron. Number 7.
Cat quit. He quit. Okay, now nobody wants to tell you he quit, but everybody was tiptoeing around like, man, I think he can play. We're not sure what's going on here, but yeah, you cry like I'm going to go Dennis Green here. Crown his ass if you want to, like they are who we thought they were, right? I guess. Anyway,
Josh Hoover at Texas Christian, something called Caden Salter at Colorado. Names that are above Barron Morton on this list. There seems to be some like lack of benefit of the doubt for Morton, but at the same time, I understand Chris because I've got as many questions myself, and I've been here watching the whole thing and. I really want it to be successful and want it to be a great story, but I still have questions just because we haven't sort of seen the wagon unhitched. But I think last year you saw plenty to suggest that he's an above average quarterback for you. And what I think is an above average quarterback in this league. I don't know, maybe 9 still represents that, but I certainly get the point that you're making there. At the end of the day, regardless of how he stacks up to other quarterbacks, that's not what we're here for.
I know.
Wins and losses, but this is still talking season, so we're talking about it. And I appreciate the triggering, man, because I like a little Chris level enthusiasm.
Yeah, I think what else is interesting is there's there's these various NFL lists and criteria out there that are like not really associated with the NFL, but it's like the NFL Combine and the NFL Draft that are all of those kinds of worlds. And there's two of them out there in the ether. They have nothing to do with college, or they don't care about what league you were in or where you played or whatever. And those have independently ranked a lot of your players. Okay, this is where we talked about you've got, according to one of them, you've got the most draftable prospects like in the country, tied with Alabama. And again, Alabama's is a lot more quality than yours is, but point still stands. And again, these people, their job is to get it right. They don't care about what some analytical thing said or what league they're in or how they performed on Thursdays versus Saturdays. No, their job is to draft and grade the best football players they can, regardless of where they come from. And both, ironically, have Barron is like this late round kind of thought process. And again, he has a chance to, it's like the fifth round range. He has a chance to improve upon that, or he could hurt it depending on what the year. But it's just funny because I almost feel like that group may look at Barron's scenario better than some of us or some of the media. And again, you got to go do it. I mean, I get it. You got to prove that you can stay healthy. But I think all this fodder is certainly adding fuel to a lot of the fire over there, which is not a bad thing.
No.
Yeah, not a bad thing at all.
27-8 right now, though. If you told me I could have that again.
And you know what?
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team at the college basketball tournament live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. We all know there's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. With Gametime Picks, curation makes it even easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the one and only lowest price guarantee, which means you get the lowest price or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Plus, peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price. Guaranteed.
Did anybody watch the Colorado game? I know you were there, so was I. But remember malpractice on the left side of that offensive line? And keep in mind, he's getting his face mask pulled. He's getting hit low and late, and there's no, that's a separate conversation. But, that was a huge game, and I felt like that if you went back and watched it, it's like, what is he supposed to do? But see, that part is not factored into, I think, a lot of these conversations, and it should. Sure. It should. So,
and I do remember that malpractice. I think there's still some pending litigation as a result of that malpractice between quarterback and offensive lineman.
Yeah, that's and remember the Baylor game when you just could not get them stopped, and it's short of you scoring every time. I mean, this wasn't, and then he didn't finish the TCU game. Those were your 3 conference losses. I just want to offer that up.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that he doesn't have any responsibility here. It's not what I'm suggesting. He was far from perfect. He would tell you the same thing. However, I just don't know if enough of the story is being told on some of what around him was. But this is how the QB position works. I get it. But we love you, Andy Staples. You do good work. I just wanted to point some of this stuff out because I watched Rocco Becht in person.
Hey, Rocco. All right, Chris, before we get out of here, you mentioned a couple of names I thought would fit this bill great already in Terrence Carter and Cole Wisniewski. So we can circle back to them or any other names that come to mind as far as potential alternates on a list beyond those two. If you disagree with Barron or you disagree with Romello, maybe one of these names might be out there for you. I wanted to offer up, as far as undervaluing, a name that I was reminded of this week when I saw, I think it was a Big 12 offensive lineman ranking, and Davion Carter was actually the first guy that was listed from a tech perspective. And I feel like even amongst his own clan, Red Raiders, we're sort of forgetting about the name. And we always mention, the measurables are not going to, fit an NFL prototype necessarily. But there were several weeks, I think, where he was your highest graded guy last time around and turned into a positive piece. So Davion Carter is, I think, one that might fit this kind of list.
If he was just taller with longer arms, we would be having a much different conversation. But I think along the lines of that July 4th most explosive athlete type conversation. I mean, this is a dude that, looking at my benches 475 and squats 650. And when healthy, because he had an ankle issue at the end of the year, and when healthy, like he gets the most out of what God gave him. It's just that it's not prototypically, does he weigh enough? Can he, all the things. But I mean, again, I go back to, that's a great candidate for this. And the NFL folks actually have him on the radar. Now, when the rubber meets the road, we'll see. But, you like, man, you need to be 2 inches taller and 25 pounds heavier. Well, this is what I am. Well, it's not going to work for, I don't know how that'll go, because typically that's the way the NFL it's just pretty much cut and dry. Like you gotta be this, you gotta be that. Even if you're not great, we can fix it. But, this is just what the history of our sport would suggest. But yeah, he's a great candidate. And I think we have focused so much on a lot of the newcomers coming in. He's a returner that we've totally kind of, last time we talked about him, Cowan, it was like when the announcement came that he was coming back, and there may be a direct correlation into some of your spring transfers out, like Nick Fadig specifically. Davion Carter stays, Fadig leaves. There may be a direct correlation into one and the other, but he's been nothing but penciled in, if not even some Sharpie activity in that right guard spot since, I don't know, early part of spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, for those just stopping by, like, I'll just remind you, nobody is undervalued on Locked On Texas Tech. This is for the people that are just showing up here today. Clearly, we value everyone appropriately. That's why you dial us up, because we're already talking about these guys. I wonder about somebody that we have mentioned, I think, in a couple of recent conversations, but AJ McCarty is kind of a name that came to mind as well, because I think he was flashing in some big ways. Had a pick six, I think, at one point last year, and I just sort of among the new additions and everything else, I feel like maybe we're not talking about him quite as much.
You're hitting another guy on the July 4th special,
That's
22,
right.
22 miles an hour on the GPS. Now, AJ Ballhawk is somebody that, now what hurts this case is that, and maybe we'll find out as it plays along, is that right now he's kind of a top backup. If Dingle has in fact moved ahead of him, AJ is more starter, part-time starter, depending on what scheme you're going to start out a game in or whatever. So I don't know if we have a good, but this speaks to how good your team could be. Like when we're because like you mentioned Davion Carter, who you're not asking about is Vinny Scurry. Vinny Scurry may not be slated to start this year, and Davion Carter in a roundabout way may have a lot to do with that. So we'll take the guy that we thought maybe was going to play in Carter's spot. We'll move him over to the left side in Jados, and we'll Jados, and then now Vinny Scurry is like a top backup. All of this is good for your team. And before I finish, I have a saying that I try to live by. Just because you try to blow somebody else's candle out doesn't make yours burn any brighter. So I'm not trying to like dog on Rocco Becht, right? Or anybody else. Good on you. I'm just trying to tell our guy's story better than other people I feel like can. And you are too, Cowan. So yeah, you're right. We're equal opportunistic valuing of certain people. But yeah, I think the AJ McCarty and Carter examples are exactly why people should be excited about your team, because these are like the undervalued types. These are guys that weren't even necessarily starters or their backups, and yet the people that we kind of had are still here, still competing. It's just you've got a lot of depth here, and quality depth, and depth that could play at the next level type stuff. So this is all good.
Yes, it was a fair assessment of this program and the things we're describing within it. Chris, I appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Let us know what you think out there in the YouTube comments, or shoot us a text if you're in the Matador Mob, who we're hitting on, or maybe who we're missing and we haven't mentioned. Looking forward to plenty more still to come this week. So we'll see you for the next one, man.
Sounds good, man. We will keep the hope alive, and I won't have any slander about our people. I just won't take it. Calvin won't either. He demands that we stay triggered. Bang bang. We are loaded, and we'll come firing at you, man. If you put out a list that we don't care for, or if Zarnell doesn't care for it either, we'll point it out too. So yeah, but keep hope alive, people.
And just hang tight. We'll do the slandering whenever the game actually begins to be played. All right, that's our job as Red Raider fans. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of it in all directions. Once again, college football season just around the corner. All right, for Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for being out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And thanks to the everydayers for always riding along. Appreciate the Matador Mob, of course, for always being out there as well. Hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining that crew. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one texts and straight to your phone. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.